Alright, I'm back here again to talk about that game I stumbled upon by accident. Had a lot to do, but now I have returned, and things are only going to be getting worse from here. I remember that the last thing I left on was a little bunny poking her head out of that rusted logo on the title screen after completing Amy's level. Not gonna lie, this alone actually disturbed me a little bit, especially knowing what happened to Amy previously. That disturbance was getting worse by the second as I'm recognizing that it was the cream of all individuals who would be next. But I was here to get scared, so I shrugged and pressed enter. Immediately, everything cut to black with a sharp static sound. After a few moments, white pixelated text faded on screen, and I read out Kind and Fair, Act 1. Everything soon slid away, revealing Cream to be in a level that I honestly did not recognize whatsoever. I immediately began to move forward, very curious to see what on earth would happen here. The stage looked kind of strange to me, mainly because of how relaxing it all looked. The floor itself was actually quite colorful. Though mostly blue, I believe there were a couple of different triangles on there of varying different colors. The background was by far the most interesting though. It was a nice, clear night sky, stars twinkling all throughout it. And occasionally there were actually a couple bursts of fireworks off there in the distance. And from time to time, I could actually make out a small white castle just sitting off there in the background. The music too was actually quite relaxing. Now, I didn't recognize it at first, but eventually I realized that it was the theme from Green Hills Zone, but slowed down quite a bit. I actually almost forgot that I was even playing a horror game. But anyway, there were quite a few obstacles that I ended up coming across as I traversed the level. Some loops here and there, some pitfalls, same usual stuff you'd find in a Sonic stage. Pretty fun overall, but the stage did become a bit peculiar over time. It first started when I found one of those speed boost boxes. The tiny little metal box with the glass screen on it shows a red pair of shoes. I broke it immediately and, well, as expected, my movement speed increased for a while. Almost immediately when I started moving, however, I nearly fell into a pit full of spikes. Gosh, I remember letting out a heavy sigh of relief as I tottered just next to the edge. Thankfully, I did not fall into it, and I just jumped over it and continued moving ahead. Things did continue to get more and more interesting from here. See, that speed boost I got, it never left. Not one time as I continued rushing through the level. And I was running for a while. I actually had enough time to the point where I found another one of those boxes, and I broke it too. What really caught my interest when I shattered this one though was how my movement speed increased even further, so now I was going double the rate of speed that I just previously had. But once again, immediately after getting the boost, I nearly fell into another pit of spikes. I didn't fall into it, thankfully. I was actually a bit more careful this time, so I stopped and managed to clear the jump with a bit more ease this time. I continued blitzing through the level once more, really enjoying just how fast I was going. It was quite fun. But yet again, I did find another speed boost and shattered it. And yet again, almost instantly after finding it, there was another pit full of spikes. There was one slight difference though. I think there were a few more pits of spikes that I had to come across compared to before, but even so, this cycle repeated quite a bit. I'd find a speed boost, break it, my speed would increase much further than before, and I'd have to clear a jump over a bunch of spikes. Rinse and repeat. I think there was even one after a loot, too. I swear, if there is one thing I definitely would say I like, it's running around a level at Mach 2, dude. It can become a little less fun at times, though, when you're trying to run around, but there's so many different ways you can die in the process. Now, anyway, I'm actually surprised I even managed to make it through that stage, all the way to the end without dying. When I did make it to the finish, I was greeted with none other than Sonic the freaking Hedgehog. And he was sitting there, his eyes closed, arms crossed. The sprite looked as if he was lost in thought. I stared at him for a few moments, curious to see what he would do, but he didn't really do anything. One moment I was looking at him there, then the next moment his eyes suddenly shot open, a pure black. I think I managed to catch a glimpse of a small smile beginning to spread across his face before the screen suddenly cut to black with a sharp static sound. I was then met with yet another title screen. This time I read out Kind and Fair, Act 2, in white pixelated text. The words and everything then slid away to reveal Cream yet again standing in the beginning of that same relaxing looking stage. Fireworks going off in the night sky, White Castle in the distance, all of it. All the way down to the slowed version of the Green Hill theme. I immediately began moving through the stage, really curious to see what would take place next. Everything kind of was pretty uneventful, for the most part. The terrain was pretty flat, save for a few moments where it curved up and back down, kind of like a hill. There were even a few more spike pits here and there for me to get over. Surprisingly to me, I didn't even see one of those speed boost boxes. But shrugged it off and just kept moving forward. I remember traveling for quite a while, longer than I would have expected. Eventually, I did find something, though. It was another one of those power-up boxes, but this one was already smashed, so I wasn't sure which one it was. It was just the bottom portion of it that remained. Even so, as I had Cream pass it, it looked a bit disgusting to me. There was a thick crimson substance that was leaking from the shattered remains of that box. But what made me feel disgusted was how slimy it all looked. Honestly, at the time, I didn't really know what to think of it, so I just moved on as if nothing had happened. Eventually, the terrain soon flattened completely. No pits, no spikes, no little hills at all. I began to wonder once again if something was about to take place. I had a feeling some kind of event was going to happen soon. I actually recall beginning to relax a little as I traveled through the level, just really enjoying the nice slow music in combination with the scenery of the stage. It just looked all nice. A sudden screech cut through my speakers, completely breaking me out of my trance. Sonic appeared, leaping out at me, his hand outstretched in my direction. Before I knew it, he had vanished. Though it was a split second, I do remember a few key features. One of the most obvious ones was how he was just splattered with red. Nothing but blood all over him. His teeth were razor sharp. I think they were in the smile, possibly. But his eyes were the easiest to notice. Well, outside of the blood, of course. All pure black with two bright red glowing dots in them, staring right at me. Anyway, everything did finally return back to normal. Once again, Cream was standing there on the stage, fireworks going off in the night sky in the background. But there was one difference. Standing just ahead of the character was another one of those speed boost boxes. But this one had splotches of red over it. I do recall actually getting pretty excited after seeing this. I think I smashed the dang thing without any hesitation. I was quite surprised when it had a differing effect. It didn't, it didn't exactly increase my movement speed. It did, just not in the way I would have expected. The moment Cream made contact with the box, she ended up stuck in a spin dash animation. I tried to stop her movement, but nothing worked. Tried moving the opposite direction, I tried jumping. No response. She was truly frozen in that animation. And it only got worse from here. She soon smashed through a second box, then a third, then a fourth. Before I knew it, she had gone through, I don't even know how many. I'd say at least a couple dozen. With every single box that she crashed into, her speed rate increased. So much so that eventually I couldn't even make out the stage anymore. It was all nothing but a blur. What made it worse was her sprite in the spin dash animation began to change. The color darkened a little to this almost pinkish red color over time. Before I knew it, everything halted with a sickening splat as Cream made contact with something. I looked on in horror, my eyes widening at the gory display. She was absolutely torn to shreds. Her body was left, it was nothing but a fleshy mess. Nothing but a dark color of crimson everywhere. I couldn't even make out anything that remotely looked like fur. I think one of her ears was even missing. But it was so hard to tell through all the pixels. What made it so much worse was, as I watched everything carefully, eventually I noticed that her mouth began to move ever so slightly. She was somehow still alive, still conscious. Shallow breaths escaped her lips as one of her eyes slowly drained into that deep shade of red, as one of many spikes impaled her. An entire wall of them. Suddenly, after a few moments, the background began to shift upward, blurring a bit. Slowly the color shifted from that dark blue to red and black as it changed. And just for a split second, I could make out two familiar glowing dots among that darkness. Before it all cut to black, that deep Sega jingle playing along with it. Red pixelated text then appeared on screen, and I read out, "So blinded by their suffering. Why?" It then faded before being replaced with, "The best part is, you're not the first player, and you won't be the last." A sudden laugh cut through my speakers. It sounded almost like that laugh that Tom described to me. The Kefka laugh, I believe it was. But it was different, higher pitched. I was then returned to that decrepit title screen from before, with the rusted logo. And Amy still stood to the left. Those ghoulish features from before still remained. This time, though, she wasn't alone. Cream was there, to the right of the logo. Her once bright fur was now this dark, deep shade of purple. Her eyes were closed, her expression one of calm. My attention shifted back to that rusted logo as I noticed movement. And, I looked to see a familiar chipmunk rising from beneath. Sally Acorn was who I'd be playing next.